Welcome, everyone. And I'm beyond excited today to have the illustrious, the famous Dr. Phil Maffetone with us as our guest. And we've got so many topics to explore. I hope you're all ready, belted in, ready to go. But before we even get started, we must, as a Ovadia Heart Health team, let you know that anything we discuss here today is for educational, empowerment, and inspiration purposes. If you do want to talk to someone about a specific medical concern, please reach out to our team at ifixhearts.com. And again, this is just for our educational purposes here today. So, welcome, Phil.
Thanks, Krisna. It's really great to be with you.
And I'm not quite sure where to get started, but let's do something very old fashioned. And for those of our listeners who's not familiar with our work, can you give us a little brief overview background, but also talk to us about what you're currently busy with and working on?
Well, my career, as an overview, my career has been focused on human performance. And that's kind of a general term. But I worked with athletes, of course, which many people know that I've done. And human performance in sports is obvious. But I've also worked with CEOs who need to perform really well to run a company successfully. I've worked with politicians and the military and brain injured children and adults, and a lot of others. And the performance of our brain and body really begins with the brain. So that's quite often where I like to focus things, because without good brain function, other things are not going to work very well. So that's a good place to start. And that, as you've asked, is exactly what I've been doing. My latest project is a research scientific paper that I've just submitted, and I'm waiting to hear back from the reviewers. And it's about brain health and how our brain function influences society, and all the bits and pieces of society that we'd like to fix, we can only fix if we have a healthy brain. And people might wonder, well, gee, we seem to be in a mess today. We must not have a lot of healthy brains. Well, what the paper says is that around 80% of the world's population does not have a healthy brain. And that's a little bit shocking, but it's what the data shows, and what I have been thinking about a lot throughout my career. But lately I thought this was a topic that needed to be written about, and I enlisted help from Professor Paul Larson, who some of you may know. And so the paper's done. I hope. We keep getting reviewer comments, and then I end up adding another 10 or 20% more to the paper, which is okay. It always ends up in the end better. So that should be coming out soon.
Congratulations on the paper, and we look forward to reading it. And I had myself a background as a professional dancer, and we used to have a saying, well, it's very hard to separate the brain from the body, especially since they're attached. We said it jokingly, but on the serious note, that so much of your mindset had to do with how you performed.
Without a doubt. And it's not just the mindset, but as a dancer, as an athlete of any sort, movement begins in the brain. Our motor cortex sends messages to the muscles, telling it what to do. It typically does two things. It tells it to contract and relax. And that balance of contraction and relaxation gives us the great gaits that we're used to seeing in athletes and in dancers especially. But when we have a mess up, when things go bad, we have muscle imbalance. So one muscle's contracting too much and one muscle's contracting too little. That's all coming from the brain. And yeah, mental imagery is another good example. You mentioned the mental part, but the metabolism of the brain, very, very important. We need brain energy to make the brain work, which then makes the body work. And gee, we can go on and on about all that, but that's an example of how important the brain is for health. And you mentioned this to some athletes, and I've seen this through my career. You say, well, the brain's the most important part of an athlete. And they look at you funny, like, what? But it is. And yes, you can't separate them. We need to take care of our brain and make our brain part of our training and part of our life in many ways.
And since our program is highlighting a lot of helping not only just employee wellness, but helping companies sort of see the value in keeping their employees healthy, of this little brain piece, where are some ways that you could see that companies could be doing a little bit more to positively influence that brain health?
Yeah, that's a good question. And what you're doing is really great. Unfortunately, what's happening in the corporate world with so-called corporate fitness is something different. And I was doing this in the early 80s. And I would explain to the CEO, if we get everyone together and explain health and fitness and the need to balance both, and how they can improve their health and improve their fitness and therefore improve their brain function, the whole organization will be better. And it indeed worked that way. And it wasn't very hard. It was really quite simple. What's happened in corporate fitness, just like in the gym market, I call it the gym market. All these gyms that pop up, and they have different things that they promote as, this is what we do different. And the model is that we want a lot of people to join, but we don't want a lot of people to show up, because if they did, we physically wouldn't be able to fit them in our gym. And the corporate fitness world is the same way. And I've seen multi-million-dollar gyms built in corporations, and the corporation makes, for every dollar they spend, they're getting $3, $4, $5, $6 in return. They write it off, among other things. But I've seen a lot of these multi-million-dollar facilities that are just very unattended. There's nobody there. It's really sad. So I think one of the things that can turn that around is instilling a responsibility for the individual, because they're the ones that have to decide, okay, on Tuesday and Thursday, I'm going to go to the gym, and on Saturday and Sunday, when I have more time, I'm going to do something similar to what I do in the gym at home or outside. And it's all going to be easy and simple, and it doesn't have to be long, and it's going to make a big difference. And that's a very important thing. And the other thing is the dietary part, because As my research has shown and other people's research has shown, the diet can give us more health benefits than the exercise component.
Uh, well, lots to unpack there. And I seem to always butcher this quote, but I think it was Jack LaLanne that said, you know, and I never remember who's it first. It's fitness is king and nutrition is queen, and put them together and you have a kingdom. And I could have probably said them in reverse, but
Sure. Yeah, we need
we get the
both.
idea. We need
Yeah, we
both,
need both.
right?
But the mistakes that we sometimes make, and I've done it, is that we overwhelm people easily because, first of all, we're passionate. You and I are both passionate about what we do. And if we get too passionate and we're talking to somebody who may be hearing this for the first time, or even if they're very, they want to do something because they need to, but we overwhelm them with too many things, they're not going to do anything. So we have to start somewhere. What is the hierarchy? What's high up? And that would be the dietary part. If you had to start with one thing only, that would be it.
And this is a great segue. You were one of the very early adopters of and you can explain it better how you labeled it, but into the low carbohydrate, low sugar, nutritional lifestyle amongst your athletes, and correct me if I'm wrong, as well as your non-athletes, correct?
That's correct. And it was a tough sell for athletes because the industry, the sugar industry, the junk food industry, was so ingrained in sports advertising and marketing, and they supported all the races. They were at the Olympics, and so they created this image that athletes needed sugar for energy. And then the public, who didn't consider themselves athletes, even though they were just untrained athletes, they were told from an early age, and I was told from an early age, even in college, early in college, that humans are glucose animals. We're glucose based. That's where our energy comes from. And it took a while for me to realize that, hey, we burn fat for energy in our muscles as well as glucose. And we burn ketones in our brain. We could, along with glucose. And what a deal. I mean, this is like amazing. We have virtually unlimited energy in our brain and body because we've got these different fuels we can use. And the fact is, we can measure in an individual how much fat and how much, like that muscle imbalance example I gave, we can measure to see how much fat and how much sugar we're burning for energy at any given time, at rest or while on a treadmill. And in general, those who burn higher levels of fat, relatively lower levels of glucose, are healthier all around. They have better brain function. They have less body fat. They have no excess body fat. They perform better, and their long-term health and fitness is excellent.
Right. And that's a lovely example of how to explain it. And in your, let's say, the drive to not overwhelm people, if there's a lot of terms even within the low carbohydrate. Are you fat adapted? Are you able to use fat as fuel? For someone who's maybe never even heard those terms, and they're wanting to become more versatile in their fuel sources, how do you guide them in that simplicity?
Well, I give them one recommendation, just one recommendation. Get off all the refined carbohydrates, and that includes sugar. And the reason it's important, is that refined carbohydrates, which are virtually all the flours, almost all the flours products that are out there, bread and pasta, and even in the US, if it says whole wheat, it only means 30% of it's whole wheat. So 70% of it is refined. When we eat refined carbohydrates, it immediately turns to sugar. So that bowl of pasta is like eating a whole bunch of pure sugar. So that's the one recommendation. Eliminate the sugar and then replace it with real food, vegetables and meats and eggs and real natural foods. You'll automatically get more nutrient because those refined carbohydrate products that some people are eating, like 60-70% of their diet is refined carbohydrates. Get rid of that, put back natural healthy stuff, and you're getting nutrient dense food and you're getting a lot of nutrients. But now you're also shifting your metabolism so that you're burning a lot more fat and you're burning less glucose. So your blood sugar gets stable. You burn off excess body fat, and it's a domino effect. One thing leads to another and another and another. And, things like blood pressure will come down within a few days to a week. Your high triglycerides will drop within a few days. Your energy goes up, your hunger disappears. You realize how addicted sugar can be because you think about it all day and all night for the first few days. But then you get off it, and it's still hard for weeks because it's so ingrained in us that sugar is so valuable, and we, of course, love the taste of it, and we all grew up equating it to love, and just all these ridiculous things, most of which the sugar industry has created. It's just like the tobacco industry, creating this image. Doctors doing TV commercials saying smoking is good. Obviously it's not, but look how long it took them. That's what my paper's about. Hey, it shouldn't take this long. Let's just do it now.
I'm excited again. And for those who are just joining now, if you'd like to see more about what Phil is working on, you can visit his website. I believe it's maffetonemusic.com, and dive in a little bit more. Hundreds of papers written, and so much information. I want to just go a little bit offward because we've had several people inquire, not only amongst our clients within the Ovadia Heart Health team. Can you explain to individuals what the Maffetone Method is in training? For those who haven't heard about it, there's many of us who've been talking about it for years, but there just might be some people that don't know about it.
Well, it's kind of what we've been talking about here all along. That's all part of the MAF method, sometimes called the Maffetone Method. MAF stands for maximum aerobic function. And it's not just for athletes, it's for everyone, because the human body is endowed with this huge aerobic system. And that aerobic system is what gives us long-term energy, because we can burn fat, and we have a lot of fat that will give us a lot of energy for a long time, even the leanest among us. The maximum aerobic function concept also includes the aerobic muscle fibers, which almost every muscle in the body, except for the jaw muscles, have aerobic muscles. And these are also called slow twitch muscles. And they burn fat for energy, but they can work all day long as you can burn enough fat. And these muscle fibers are important in sports, but they're also important because they support our physical body. They support our joints, all the joints in the body. They support as muscles. They support each other. They support the bones and ligaments, tendons, all the soft tissue. They keep us moving. They keep us standing and working all day. So that's another component of the aerobic system that is very important. And when I first learned in college, when I first learned about this aerobic system, I thought, gee, I never heard of that. I've heard about the anaerobic system where we can sprint really fast. But the aerobic system, that is essentially what makes us human. We can sprint because of our aerobic system, because the aerobic system supports our sprint muscles as well. We can go for long periods of time, like I said, because we have that incredible endurance because of aerobic function, and that's what MAF is all about. So it's a very big, broad, holistic view of body health and fitness.
And within the MAF system, where we've seen also some really positive results, also there's always going to be people who kind of push the exercise to the extreme, or I know Mark Sisson is using this term chronic cardio training, and seen really good results from individuals who've been kind of, let's say, addicted to fast training, hard training, lots, and not even to the point of injury, but just overtraining. And we've seen good results with people who pull it back and use your 180 minus their age training. Can you help people understand where the benefits in that might be?
Sure. And Mark, you know, I was going to say my old friend Mark, but my long-time friend Mark is right. Getting people off that crazy, insane merry-go-round of training by pushing your body and going over and just walking easy can do wonders. You know, there have been so many, when I used to work one-on-one with athletes, there were so many who would come in and see me, and I'd look at their history, hear their history, look at their lab results, and everything I had available. And I would say to them, you would have been better off being a couch potato because of what the abuse that they instilled upon their body through their training. You know, we have this social problem, not just here in America, but all around the world. It's called the no pain, no gain philosophy, and it's really hurt a lot of people. It's killed people. It's unhealthy, and that's what I've been addressing my whole career. That's what Mark is addressing in his new endeavor. And so, if you're passionate about sports competition and you want to run your best 5K or 10K or marathon or whatever it is you're doing, triathlon, that's fine. But don't just do it right. Do it in a way that your body builds up health and fitness at the same time. Don't sacrifice your health for more fitness. And that's what people do. And by developing the aerobic system, initially getting maximum aerobic function out of your body, you're then ready to build more for speed and power. But that first step, that aerobic system, if it's not built, you have no foundation to go further.
And how do you see, Phil, for both your athletes, but also the non-athletes, resistance training fitting in a integrated program? Obviously, you have long career with endurance runners and in that particular arena. But as we try to kind of make some threads here for those people who are just trying to keep their body functioning, how does resistance training fit in that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. People who just want to keep their body working and those who want to try and win the Ironman competition. We do the same things. We may not recommend the same amount of time for exercise. Obviously, the same caloric intake. You know, but basically, we're all human beings, and if we're trying to work at a very high level of fitness, we just need to have a high level of health. Um, and so we we need to build endurance. We need to build strength. And what I found early in my career was people who were building endurance and doing all the right things, who were also doing traditional weight training, which is uh, 2 to 3 times a week, doing weightlifting to fatigue to the point where you're sore the next morning, uh, whether it's a little bit or a lot, you've trained to fatigue. Now it takes you 2 days to recover, sometimes 3, and you really can't train in that window. So how are you gonna build your endurance system? And what I found was that kind of uh, weight training routine actually impaired the aerobic system. It reduced fat burning. And so when I was helping an athlete or even a beginner build up the aerobic system, I recommended that they not do any strength training, any weight training. I would eventually develop a better way to get strong without the fatigue and without interfering with the aerobic system, which I know is one of the things you want to talk about. Um, and so the weight training and the speed workouts essentially are a very, very high level of stress, and stress impairs the aerobic system. And the game with stress is to get rid of the stresses we can get rid of, so that our body can heal up and recover and build itself up. And many things we can just get rid of by swishing them away. Some things we can't. But if we can get rid of a lot of the stress, especially refined carbohydrates, our brain, which is made to handle stress, it's made to adapt to stress. We compensate to the stress of life quite well. But if we're overwhelmed by it, we can't.
Mhm. And it's so important that that whole recovery piece as well. A philosophy I think I gained from my father is you're going to train hard, you have to rest hard. Uh,
Yes, we get more from our rest than we do from the training. And we need to look at it that way, because that's very real. Recovery is where we get stronger and better and healthier, and we're able to adapt to the stress of training
yeah.
much better.
Yeah. I want to bring up for our readers your. It is the most recent, right? I know the paper that you're working on is it or is it not the most recent
No,
book?
it's not the most recent. I don't keep track of my books. You mention these things, and I think, oh yeah, I think I wrote that book. My most recent book is on music and the brain.
Okay,
It's called Be Sharp, which is kind of a funny little.
funny,
It's
a
about
little just
being sharp in the brain, but it's also a musical. It's a
no,
goof on music theory. And just saying that, if you know music, you know what I mean, because you know what a B sharp is.
absolutely.
Get Strong, I believe, was the book before that,
Okay,
and it's about how we can get strong without really going to the gym or doing much of anything, and kind of how our ancestors stayed strong. And when we get strong, we're not just talking about muscles, we're talking about muscles and bones, because they really work together. And when we strengthen our muscles, our bones get stronger too.
Can
Um,
you say that again, especially for the ladies in the house? When we strengthen our muscles.
when we strengthen our muscles properly, we also strengthen our bones.
Yes, very important. And the reason I'm telling everyone this is called Get Strong and available is with our sort of highlighting employee wellness, how to help companies encourage better health. Yes, we definitely need to. And you can reach out to us at ovadiahearthealth.com/wellness. What is fascinating in the book and is something that we talk about a lot, you encourage individuals to do exercises throughout the day. Often the mindset in America is you can only get fit in the gym, right? Or someplace else or with whatever training. But this idea of breaking up your time at work with various exercises, which doesn't require you to put an extra thing on your calendar and go for hours here. Can you talk about the philosophy behind that and how would that
Sure,
actually look?
it's how humans have always done it. We didn't, the caveman and the cave woman didn't, say, "Oh, it's that time of day. We have to go and lift rocks now." Um, they did that because they needed to. They needed to clear an area. They needed to drag logs out of the woods for fires. They needed to lift heavy things, um, and they did it on and off all day long. And so I'm just mimicking that kind of thing. And here's what I do right now. I've spent a lot of my life digging in the ground, making gardens, lifting big heavy rocks, dragging them out of the woods to build stone walls, make paths, make artistic statues. And when I didn't have that to do anymore, I found something that mimicked that. So today, I'll get up in the morning and I'll typically, depending on my day, if I'm working on this paper, I'll go to the computer and start working. And then I'll start thinking about what I just wrote and I'll start pacing back and forth. And if I pace into my living room, I will pick up a barbell that has a pretty good amount of weight on it, but not too much weight. And I'll lift it up. I may lift it up here. I may lift it up here, but usually, I could sometimes just leave it hanging, especially in the morning if I haven't been doing a lot. I keep it simple. And then I'll do 5 or 6 half squats, maybe quarter squats, and then put the weight down. And then I'll go back to my computer because by now my subconscious mind has figured out what I've been trying to consciously figure out. And I'll go back and I'll work for a while. And then I'll maybe think about something else. And then I'll send a couple of emails. And while I'm waiting to get one back, I'll wander over into the living room and do another 5 or 6 squats with that same weight. And I may do that 3 or 4, 5, 6, or 10 times in the course of a day. I won't get sore. I'm not sore the next day. And I've done a huge amount of strength training. And I just want to say a couple of things. One is that will not increase the bulk of your muscles, so you won't gain weight and you won't look like a big bodybuilder, who are the weakest people among all the athletes. By the way, really, they're truly very weak. Number two, you'll get strong muscles because you're training. It's a biofeedback technique, basically. This is how we treat brain injured people who had a stroke, or a child from birth has a muscle that doesn't work. But what we're doing is we're asking the brain to send messages to the muscles to contract more fibers within the muscle. That's what strength is all about. And to give you an analogy of this old story, which is actually a true story, it's happened a number of times, it's been documented, is the woman, the 97-pound woman who lifts the car up because her child is caught underneath. How can that happen? When we're stressed, we get stronger. We get stronger because we get all this barrage of activity to our muscles saying, contract more fibers and you'll get stronger. And way back in the 50s and maybe the 60s, I don't know, maybe people do it today, but in the weightlifting community, when someone's trying to lift a lot of weight, maybe weight that has never been lifted before, the coach will be behind him with a starter's pistol and fire it just as he's ready to lift the hardcore older weight people know what I'm talking about. But what we're doing is we're enlisting, we're saying to the brain, hey, contract more fibers in these muscles, and that will make us stronger. The workout I just mentioned does the same exact thing.
And this is phenomenal also from a company perspective, because companies worry that people might be taking too much time to go, whether it's to the gym or to something else. You're talking about just doing little spurts of activity to enhance your health, and it's not hours taken away from what you're doing. And
yeah, and you don't have to change clothes. You don't have to wear a special anything.
Right.
You're not going to sweat because you don't feel like you're doing anything, but you're doing a tremendous amount. You're making the muscles and the bones stronger. Now, there's a catch between the two sets that I described. You want to wait at least 3 minutes. That allows the muscle to recover completely from the workout, and that prevents the muscles from getting big and bulky, which don't necessarily mean they're stronger. People with big, bulky muscles are not necessarily strong. And the person you want to really look at and admire is the Olympic weightlifter, because he or she has a certain amount of weight that they can carry, because they want to be in a certain weight class. They want to be in a lower weight class. And if they build muscle, they have to go into a higher weight class where people tend to be stronger. So they want to be down here, and they get very, very strong and maintain very lean muscles.
Interesting. I see we have a question that's come in here from quite a lovely title of a Kicking Ass After 70. All right. Congratulations to you. Of the 5 aerobic zones, is there a particular zone we should focus our efforts? I'm 73, almost 74. Congratulations. And using your 180 formula, my range is 91 to 101, which seems really low, as I am in good shape.
Yeah, well, as you get into better aerobic shape, you can do more exercise. You could run faster and bike faster with a lower heart rate. So that's something to consider. The 180 formula, and I have an article that I just posted a couple of weeks ago. That's sort of an update. It's not really any changing of the 180 formula, but it emphasizes a couple of things that people tend to forget. Overtraining and overfat are the two things. But I don't recall if the tail of that 180 formula is in that article or not, but if it's not, it should be. But in all the other 180 formulas you see posted online and in my books and articles, it says for those 65 and over, you may need to modify the 180 formula based on your individuality. So if you're in your 70s and and you're in good health and good fitness, then you can raise that, but you still have to be careful because you don't want to work out. If you're working out aerobically, you don't want to ever be sore. You don't want to be tired. You don't want to be fatigued. You don't want to be hungry after a workout. Um, and you don't want it to cause an injury to recur. So that's one thing. You can make adjustments if you're over 65. So when you're in your 70s, yes, you can do that. But at the same time, you have to consider the other parts to the 180 formula. You know, the body fat aspect, the medication aspect where you would lower your heart rate if you're on medication. But again, if you're over 65, you can make an adjustment upward if you have some basis to do that. And the best basis to do that is the MAF test, where you walk or jog a certain distance, a couple of loops around the track, a mile, whatever. And if your 184, if your exercise heart rate that you've found is right for you, then you'll get faster at the same heart rate as the months go by.
Wonderful. And for those of you who are not familiar, I highly encourage you to look up the Maffetone Method, or the MAF method, 180 minus your age. And you can learn even more. You can also look, if you want to see more of what Phil is busy with, at maffetonemusic.com. When we think about the MAF method, so it's more than just the training, right? We're talking about nutrition. We've hit on that a little bit. We've talked about recovery, obviously the training, and that. What are some other parts of the Maffetone method?
Well, the other important part is stress. And when I say stress, people think of emotional stress, but we have to look at our physical stress, our biochemical stress, which is where our metabolism is, and our mental emotional stress. Physical stress would be things like sitting. If we're sitting too much during the day, it's a huge stress. That's why I have a stand-up desk. It's not really a desk. It's just that I stand up in a place where my computer is perfectly lined up, and I can work there quite easily. The kinds of shoes we wear. Do our shoes even fit correctly? Are they too thick, which can be a stress? Biochemical stress would be where the dietary things come in. And then, of course, mental, emotional stress includes education. So if we're having a tough time, it's often because we're influenced by social things like no pain, no gain, and the sugar companies saying we need sugar, and we need to educate ourselves. And that imbalance in understanding is really hurting us. So we need to make those changes. And I would often have a patient make a list of all their physical stresses, and it could take a few days to do this. A list of their physical stresses, and then a list of their biochemical stresses, nutrition, how much coffee are you drinking? Are you drinking enough water? Are you drinking too much water? And then a list of their mental, emotional stresses. And at the end, when you think you have them all there, now circle the biggest physical stress that you can change, and the biggest biochemical stress, and the biggest mental, emotional stress that you can change. You can't change where you live. You can, but let's put that aside for now. But you can get shoes that fit. You can not sit so much. I know professional athletes who would, before I encourage them to do things better, who would get up in the morning run 5, 6, 7 miles and come home and just sit around all day. Sit on a couch. They were inactive because they sat all day. So, and then if your biochemical stress, the big one is sugar, you deal with that. If the educational component is there, you've heard some educational sources in this podcast. But there's plenty there's a lot of bad stuff out there, but there's some good stuff too. So educate yourself in a way that is going to help you, and monitor, these changes. Monitor your health. Don't just go out and train for a marathon by running, because you're going to run yourself into the ground. We're all influenced and have been. I was influenced by my gym teacher. One of my early memories of school was my gym teacher saying, you've got to hurt, you've got to sweat, leave me alone. And we hear about it all during the years we've watched TV. We watch baseball and football, and they say, well, here comes Big Joe. He's tough because he plays hurt. Wait a minute. I think Big Joe is stupid. So we need to educate ourselves, or re-educate ourselves in a natural way that's healthy and fit. And then cross those things off your list as they are easy to do. And that technique has worked wonders.
And that's a wonderful, huge takeaway for our audience, is to make those lists of your, as you call them, physical stressors and your biochemical stressors. And even if you just want to kind of re-educate yourself on where you are right now.
And that's important for your brain. I mean, what's interesting about the brain is that it can get more and more functional as the years go by. Not like our bodies slow down. I know I'm only 40 years old or so, but that's 80 in musician years. So, but no, really our bodies slow down. We get less flexible. Our speed reduces, strength reduces, excuse me, but our brain can keep going, and we can have the healthiest brain on the day we die. Unfortunately, what happens too often is just the opposite. We fade away. Our brain shrinks, literally. Our brain shrinks, and as that happens, we function less and less, and we start forgetting. Then we start having cognitive dysfunction, and we spend the last years of our lives not in great shape with our brain. And so we can change that. Those brain conditions we all know about and hate to even think about, for the most part, are preventable, or at least we can postpone them.
And if you had to say it, your top 3 items for continuing to age with a healthy brain, what would Phil's top 3 be?
Use your brain. Do things you're passionate about. Don't retire. I always say retire is from the Latin meaning waiting to die. Don't retire. If you don't have a passion, it's hidden away and you have to find it, uncover it. What do you dream about doing? So think about things, read things you're not familiar with, learn things. That's the whole idea of learning another language. But do them on your own. Listen to music. There's 2 things in music that will help the brain immensely. The first is listening to the oldies, your oldies. What are the songs you remember when you were 17 years, 18 years of age that you love? And when you hear it, it brings you back. Isn't it nice to be brought back to age 17? Literally, we can measure the biological change when people listen to those oldies. The other music to listen to, which is maybe more powerful than listening to oldies, is listening to music you've never heard before, because it surprises the brain. The brain loves surprises. And even if you don't like what you're listening to, listen to something that you've never heard before. And you might find that it's going to be an oldie soon, or you might say, I'm never listening to that again. But what you've done is you've made connections among the neurons that have never made those connections before. And your brain said, aha, I love this music, or aha, I hate this music. But you've made the connections, and you've gotten younger in your brain as a result of that.
Oh, wow. I'm going to have to dig up some oldie music this week and listen
Yes,
to
that's, I
something
mean,
I haven't.
everybody knows those oldies for them. I mean, I have mine, and as you start listening to them, you start uncovering other ones. You said, "Oh yeah, what was that song?" Everyone, and humor is important too. I have a thing about another thing I recommend is not celebrating your birthday. We don't need reminders that we're older. I have a little comedy clip on that website on the homepage about age and happy birthday with a question mark. So please watch that. I think that'll help your brain a lot. It helped mine.
And again, you can see Phil's work at maffetonemusic.com. And well, as we start getting closer to the bottom of the hour here, one of my questions I had for our employers and anybody in an employee wellness program, you mentioned a little bit about the big gyms and nobody's using it. Are there any other, would I like to use the phrase, low-hanging fruit that companies are just not tapping into to try to help individuals in this overwhelming health space? A couple ideas that we can
Yes.
help inspire.
Yes. One, get rid of the junk food. If you've got it in the gym, the soda machines, there's just so much junk food there. I know they're money makers, but it's not about the money. In fact, it could be about the money, because the other thing I'd recommend is that we give financial incentives to people. And I have this in my paper as one of the public health things we should be doing to individuals, because if you pay somebody, and we're not talking about $100 or even $1,000, we're talking about a substantial amount of money, and they get healthy, the amount of savings, whether it's the government or a company, the rate of return on that investment is huge. It could be 10 times. For every dollar you spend, you get $10 back. You get $10 back because this person is now healthier. They're going to incur less healthcare costs. They're going to be more productive. They're going to have less sick days. They're going to have less injuries, on the job injuries. And you add up the total dollars of all those components. If you're a business person, if you're a CFO or a CEO, that can be significant. So the financial incentives, it really depends on the situation. It's different in every situation, but they are, they work, and people love them.
Too great. Eliminate the junk. That's a great start. That's low hanging fruit for sure. And figure out what your incentives are for encouraging, trying to make health the easy option. If you want to know more about our Ovadia heart health, metabolic health programs, there's the website for that. And our emphasis is really on metabolic health. We're not a disease management program like many are that are insurance based. And well, here's one thought on the front of this
Can I
stone.
intervene? Because you said
Oh, of
something that was
course.
very important. You're not a, you don't treat diseases. So this is the problem with healthcare all around the world. It's all become westernized. We wait for the disease to strike, and then we say, oh, we could treat it now. It's almost like you're going to your doctor's saying, everything, you don't have any diseases now, come back next year, we'll see if you have any diseases, and then we'll treat you. Most of those diseases, and in fact, most of the diseases now that kill people are the chronic diseases that are, for the most part, preventable. They begin to happen early in life, when we're children. Quite often, we can measure the changes in, say, Alzheimer's, early in life, and know that down the road, this person is a candidate, and is at high risk for Alzheimer's. So why wait for Alzheimer's and the illusion that we're going to have a cure for it someday, which is not true, when we can in fact prevent it. So sorry, I just had to.
Oh, brilliant. It's so important. I just give an anecdotal example. I was working for a company at one point that had a employee wellness program. You could only take the nutrition course if you were diabetic. Okay. So again, to your point, we only want to take care of you when you're sick. The whole goal and your philosophy, your whole life. I mean, early adopter in the low carbohydrate world. I mean, this is also maybe a final question. What do you think within the low carbohydrate, ketogenic, carnivore? Do you see any pieces where maybe we're going a little off track, or pieces where we maybe should pull it back to the beginning? Any thoughts
Yes,
on that?
yes. In addition to kind of pushing the hype out of the way, because it's really very simple. It's how humans ate for millions of years. The most important thing, that comes to my mind when you mention this is, it's not a diet. We don't do diets. I don't like diets. Diets are bad. They're stressful. I don't want to go on a diet. I don't want anybody going on a diet. I just want you to eat healthy. I eat healthy. I'm not on a diet. And I don't know why that's hard to understand. People say, gee, you're pretty slim. You must be on the right diet. I said, no, I've never been on a diet. Well, how do you eat? Well, I eat what I want. I eat what I like. I eat enough, but not too much. This is how humans ate for millions of years. And why aren't we eating that way anymore? So yes, the diet factor is, and all the hype. There's always a new, low carb diet book or keto diet, or it's not a diet.
Is so important. And all I want to say is, first, this was an incredible honor. Your body of work speaks for itself. And you've got so much knowledge to share. I encourage any employees, check out Get Strong, because if you want to help your individuals find a simple way to weave movement into their workday, it's worth exploring. And we definitely going to have to get you to come back if you'll be our guest again, Phil. And
Sure, it'd be great. It's been wonderful to be here with us. This is our first time together, so let's do it again.
And again, if you want to know about our programs, we have six or seven white papers on sedentary behavior, musculoskeletal issues, mindset. We talked a lot about mindset, a host of things. You can download them all for free. If you want to reach out and see more about what Phil is doing, Dr. Phil Maffetone, check out maffetonemusic.com. And keep inspiring, keep doing what you're doing. And it's about a lifestyle.
Thanks, Krisna. This has been great.
Thank you so much, Phil.